My name is Marc Myers. I'm the author of the new book, Why Jazz Happened. The jazz that develops in California comes out of a migration. Big bands, as they're traveling across country, they used to travel back and forth between New York and Los Angeles, but by the early 1950s there's so much recording opportunity out in California that when these big bands wind up in California in the late 40s, big bands are no longer as popular as they once had been. The work isn't as frequent. A lot of these musicians leave the big bands, especially in Los Angeles, and they start to settle there because there's so much work. But at the same time, you see the rise of the California suburb. The California suburbs, the Los Angeles suburbs, developed faster than any other suburbs in the country after World War II. And you see the rise of freeways. And you also see the rise of homes. And with the proliferation of homes, all of these homes now have affordable phonographs. And with the introduction of the long-playing record, all of these homes are playing long-playing records. And the lifestyle of California, the sun, the surf, the sunsets, the laid-back lifestyle, there's a different sound that's in demand out there. It's different than the compressed, bebop, faster sound of the cities. But in suburban California, where everybody needs to travel long distance by car, there's this demand for a more yawning type of music, a more lingering or contrapuntal form of music that's completely different than anything else that had been out there previously in a small group setting. The rise of California jazz is so rapid, and the popularity of California jazz is so rapid, that New York starts to take notice. And what distinguishes California jazz are the horns. There are roughly 3 or 4 horns playing together. There's a rhythm section, but the rhythm section in California is relatively quiet, and it's a horn experience in California. New York takes notice of this, but there's something else that New York takes notice of as well, which is the sudden introduction in 1949 of the 45 RPM by RCA, the single. At first, it's a competitor to the long-playing record, but it's not long before most record companies realize that it's the perfect medium for the jukebox and for radio stations. And as this happens, you see the rapid rise of R&B, especially as the number of independent radio stations grow throughout the country. The single, or the 45, starts to give R&B enormous advantage. And as R&B becomes more popular in the early 50s, and as West Coast jazz becomes more popular in the early 50s, hard bop, in effect, merges the two. And you see a greater emphasis on a front line of horns and a steady beat, big steady beat, like R&B, but you also get the energy level of R&B. It's still jazz, but it has characteristics that are marked and found in West Coast jazz and, more importantly, in R&B. For more information about my book, Why Jazz Happened, go to whyjazzhappened.com.